probably one of the most important parts of what I teach is the importance of breathing. Because the first thing that we do when we become stressed is we stop breathing. This is my singing bowl that I've carried around for 20 years now. And it's got two purposes. One is it lets you know when we're going to start back after a break. So when I ring it, you know we're going to start back. And two, it is a cue to take 3 deep breaths. Inhaling into your nose, exhaling out of your mouth. As far deep into your belly as you can. Because breathing is so important. And it is the first thing that we stop doing when we become stressed. So I like to give you an opportunity to practice. Because you have to practice your breathing while you're calm. Because if you wait until you're stressed, remember, your thinking's confused and distorted and your short-term memory is suppressed, so you're going to forget. So let's breathe, and then I'm going to tell you why it's even more important. Three deep breaths. Let me tell you why that's also important. This should probably be that should have been one of your first ones. The most important thing you can do is teach yourself to breathe. That should be probably the top of the list. This is if you haven't already had a number one, this is a number one on your piece of paper. The most important thing you can do is teach yourself how to breathe in the midst of stress. The most important thing you can do. And I'm going to say that again. After having been doing this for 25 years at the highest level all around the world and sold over 1 million copies of books, the most important thing you can do is learn to breathe in the midst of your stress. The most important thing you can do. And what does that mean? What does breathing in the midst of your stress do? What does that actually mean you're supposed to do when you're stressed? You suck air into your nose and you blow it out of your mouth. That's all it is. That's all it is. You just, that's breathing. But guess what? As soon as we become stressed, the first thing we do is we stop breathing. As soon as stress sets in, the first thing that happens is you stop breathing. You start taking really short, ineffective breaths. And guess what's happening when you're taking those really short, ineffective breaths? You're increasing cortisol and carbon dioxide in your body, which means you're literally poisoning yourself. That's why if you don't breathe, you will just keep getting stressed out. You'll get more stressed and more stressed and more stressed. And not only that, but stress sends off a vibration because we're all vibrations. It's all we are is a walking vibration pattern. The more stressed you get, the bigger that vibration gets. You can feel it. You can feel it. Someone who's got big energy, when they get stressed, you feel it. But we feel everyone's energy all the time. We're just not conscious of it. You're just not conscious of it. So the first thing that we do when we become stressed, and I want all you parents to hear this, I want all you mental health professionals to hear this. As soon as you become stressed, you stop breathing and you start communicating a stress vibration. If you're communicating a stress vibration to a child who's already stressed, then what do you think is growing? Stress. This is all very simple. I'm like the easiest teacher in the world. Usually the answer is love, stress, and fear, or breathing. It's like those 4 things. You can write them down, that's the answer. If you're stressed, and your child's stressed, and you're not breathing and they're not breathing, and you're usually saying to them, you need to breathe, you need to be calm, you need to stop doing that, then you're stressed. Because Stress causes you to focus on the behavior. Stress causes you to focus on the behavior because the behavior in that moment is threatening your survival. So when your child is misbehaving, you are feeling at risk. So you've got to learn to take conscious control of that amygdala, and the best way to do it is to pattern yourself to learn to breathe. You have to get really conscious about your breathing, and you practice your breathing not when you're stressed. You practice your breathing when you're calm. Learn to practice your breathing when you're calm. So I've been carrying around this bowl here for 20 years, 18 to be exact. And this bowl has two purposes. A third thought jumped in my head as I said that. That was funny. No. Yeah, I know this has two purposes, but I was thinking a third thing I'm going to tell you, which after I tell you these two, I'm going to introduce you to a different breathing technique. Two purposes. One is it lets you know after a break when we start back. I'll just ring the bowl. But number two, it is a cue to take 3 deep breaths, inhaling through your nose, exhaling out of your mouth 3 times. So let's practice, and we're going to practice, and I want you to have a few opportunities to practice because this is the most important thing from the entire day. 25 years, this is the most important thing from the entire day. If you miss this, then you will go home and you will become immediately stressed out and do the same thing you've always done. If you get this, when you get home, you will still become stressed out, but you will breathe. And because you breathe, something magical is going to happen. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. Something magical is going to happen, and it's going to change all the dynamics. So let's practice. Perfect. So when we take a break, listen for the bowl. That lets you know we're going to start back, but it also is your cue to take 3 deep breaths. That's how we're going to practice it today. The third thing. There's a very powerful breath, a very powerful breathing technique that is showing to really be able to interrupt anxiety and stress. And it's called the double inhale. And so I'm going to share that with you as a little tool that you can practice to use when you're stressed. And it's very simple. Double inhale. You inhale. So you inhale. Make sure your exhale is longer than your inhale. That's how you release carbon dioxide. When you release the carbon dioxide, it releases the poison, also helps turn on your oxytocin. So you double pump. Practice that. Very powerful. So this is the magic. When you breathe in the midst of stress, you keep your thinking clear and you keep your short-term memory available. But if you don't breathe in the midst of stress, in times of stress, Joseph Ledoux says, our thinking becomes confused and distorted and our short-term memory is suppressed. So when we become stressed, our thinking becomes confused and distorted and our short-term memory is turned off. So when you become stressed, you're not thinking clearly anymore. Breathing is the one proven way to interrupt our stress physiology. The one proven way. But the first thing that we do when we become stressed is we stop breathing. We start holding our breath. When you're holding your breath, carbon dioxide is building up, and so is cortisol, which is then causing your thinking to become confused and distorted, and your short-term memory to become suppressed. So breathing is truly one of the most powerful things you can learn to do in the presence of stress. And usually I open my day with this because it's that important. Learning to breathe, conditioning yourself to breathe, but you have to practice your breathing when you're calm. Because if you wait till you're stressed, you're already stressed and you forget. So the bowl just gives you an opportunity to practice. Because when you're stressed, you are communicating a vibration through your energy. And you have two energetic states. You have a thriving state and you have a surviving state. Those are the only two languages that your body knows. Your language doesn't know words. Your brain doesn't know, your body doesn't know words. Your body only knows energy. And when we become stressed, we stop breathing. And when we stop breathing, we start holding our breath. And when you hold your breath, carbon dioxide builds up and cortisol builds up, and you create more of a negative vibration. So breathing is truly one of the most important things you do. And that's why I showed the slide from Bruce Lee. It says one of the best lessons you can learn in life is to master how to remain calm. And that is just mastering how to breathe when you are stressed. It is so important. It is the most important thing for the whole day. So I just gave you 3B. 3B. Practicing your breathing. Now I'm going to teach you a quick breathing technique that Dr. Andrew Huberman, if you don't follow him on YouTube, is a brilliant guy out of the University of Texas. He teaches, it's for anxiety. It's called the double pump. So you inhale. So you do a double inhale. So when you're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxious, you inhale. And what happens is you are releasing more carbon dioxide by doing the double inhale. You're pushing more carbon dioxide out of your body. So practice that. But at the most basic level, just practice breathing. The moment you are in a situation and your child starts acting out and stressing out and saying ugly things, it is very personal. It is very personal. And the only way you can't take it personal is that you have to be able to breathe through your own stress. But initially, you're going to take it very personal because you're wired that way. So if I just tell you, don't take it personal, I'm doing you a disservice. What I can tell you is, as soon as you take it personal, stop, take 3 to 10 deep breaths, slow down, realize that you're not going to die, realize that there's a 99% chance they're not going to die, that there's a much greater likelihood that everyone's going to be okay. Wait, pay attention to me, stop listening to them jibber-jabbering and rolling their eyes and talking back and kicking the walls and threatening. No, leave it there. Pay attention right here. Focus. You're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. Breathe. And as soon as you do that, your thinking comes back online. And then your short-term memory turns back on. See, when you're stressed, your thinking becomes confused and distorted. And your short-term memory turns off. So when you're stressed, you don't remember 5 minutes ago. You don't remember an hour ago or a week ago. It just goes away. You go into survival. When I say you, I'm talking about us as parents. When you become stressed, you're thinking that 5-year-old becomes a 20-year-old in the future in Pelican Bay State Penitentiary. That's how crazy the amygdala makes the brain. Stress does 3 things. Stress causes you to obsess about the future, react from the past, and takes you out of the present. So when something like the weather sets in unexpectedly, and you've got something you got to attend to, you got to get there, it's very easy to become stressed. And when you become stressed, you automatically start to have all these confused and distorted thoughts. Short-term memory shuts down. Some of you may even have trauma around weather. So all this anxiety gets generated, and we just start getting confused, and we panic a little bit, and anxiety peaks. And the one thing that allows us to override all that is the one thing we stop doing in that moment. We stop breathing. And breathing is the one thing that allows you to stay calm, cool, and collected. And so when I'm driving here at 7:15 and Mel says, Rochelle's trying to call you, and I've taken an exit to save 4 minutes, which puts me in the boondocks, so I'm not getting a signal anymore. Rochelle calls, and we start talking. She says, hey, the place is closed. What do you want to do? And I'm like, cool. We'll figure it out. And I know that has to help her calm down too. Because see, this is what's very important in the work I do with families, specifically with parents when it comes to their children. Is my first most important thing is helping parents understand themselves in a deeper, more clear way so they can then understand their children. Because when there are episodes and when there are issues, the worst thing that could happen for Rochelle is if I start yelling and screaming and freaking out. How could you do this? It's 7:15. I've already been driving for 45 minutes. I just flew in last night. Oh my God. How would that make her feel? Right? But no. Because I've been practicing this for a long time, I understand what's in my best interest is also going to be in her best interest, and that's to breathe. Calm myself down, realize everything's going to be okay. It's a beautiful day. I'm alive. There really is nothing I need to be worried about. She says, well, let's just meet at the office. Cool. We'll have coffee. You want to do it on Zoom? Hell, I don't care. I've been talking about this stuff for 25 years. I can talk about it in a closet with the lights turned off. It makes me no difference. None at all. And so we all relax. We get to communicate to you all in a more clear way. Reach out for help. Get support. Everyone gets pulled together. Everyone gets here. Everyone's chill. No one dies. And we move on with our day. The problem is that stress is on a continuum. There's mild stress, there's moderate stress, there's severe stress. It's on a continuum. Any stress causes confused and distorted thinking. It's an invitation. And let me tell you how innocuous stress can be. Because we think that stress means that we're running around, grabbing our hair, screaming and crying and having heart attacks. Let me tell you how innocuous stress is. When you're having a conversation at break, you're going to be talking to someone, and you're going to say, hey, do you remember when, what was that song? What was that? I did this yesterday. What was that song? Who was that person? What was that place? And you're going to be like, what was it? What was it? What was it? And then you can't remember it. You can't remember it because stress causes confused and distorted thinking and suppresses your short-term memory. So what do you have to do? You have to say, oh, I'll tell you later. I'll think of it later. That's what we all do, right? We've all done that 100,000 times. And then we wait, and 10 minutes later, or the next day, it pops in our head, and we go, that was it. Because it came up from our short-term memory. It had to go through our short-term memory. It had to come up from our long-term memory, but it had to go through the suppression of our short-term memory. When you are stressed, you are not thinking clearly. Now, let me bring this down to the level of your children. How many of your children struggle in school? You think school's a little stressful? School's a whole lot stressful. School's potentially traumatizing. Potentially traumatizing. So if school's stressful, and stress causes confused and distorted thinking, and suppresses the short-term memory, how effective can your child learn in that environment? They can't. They can't. Not because they're not sitting still, not because they're not paying attention, not because they're being lazy, not because they don't like their teacher, not because they just don't want to, but because when they're stressed, which all those things can create, when they're stressed, their brain is literally not online. It goes completely offline. But in our educational system, what happens when children don't learn? They get punished. They get punished. What does punishment do? Create stress. Quick group. Fast learners. Fast learners. Now, I don't want you to just let that breeze past you. Because that's a paradigm shift. That's a paradigm shift. That's why it's number 2 on your list of 3. Because it's so important. Because when you get stressed, and this is the gravity of it, when you become stressed, that stress triggers your brainstem. Within your brainstem are all of your painful experiences, trauma memories, which means your amygdala is stirring up your brainstem. It's stirring up your brainstem. So you're no longer able to be present. You cannot learn in that environment. You certainly can't remember anything. You're too stressed out. But the significance is, we take children who are already stress sensitive and fearful, we put them in stressful environments, we expect them to learn. When they don't learn, we punish them, which creates more stress. What does that tell you about us, the adults and the educators? We're just as stressed out as the kids are, because we're not learning either. We're not learning that by creating more stress, I'm just making it more difficult for the child to learn. We're not learning that by creating more stress, I'm not learning and I'm not doing anything differently. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And what does Einstein call that? Who called that? Not Bryan Post. Who called that? Einstein said that to do the same thing over and over and to expect a different result is insanity. And tonight when you get home, I want you to run home and wait for your child to act up. Because they're going to. They're going to. See, here's what you're going to learn about this work, is that this work is all very practical. I know your kids, and I also know you. So I'm going to tell you that your children, and I'm going to celebrate you for a minute, because I want to tell you that your children are going to make it through the entire day today, and probably no one in here is going to get a phone call. That is reason to celebrate. Can I get a round of applause? What? I mean, you're like, we got kids that are messed up, but you're going to make it through the whole day and probably not get a phone call. And the reason is because you have helped your child establish a window of tolerance for how much stress they can handle. They have a window of tolerance, and they utilize that window of tolerance all day long to deal with stress and to not blow out and to not require you to have a phone call. All day long they use it. And guess what? Tonight when you get home, they're not going to have any window of tolerance anymore. They're going to be completely stressed out. And who's the most stressful person in their life? You are. most threatening person in your child's life. Do you know why? Do you know why you're the person in your child's life that makes them feel the most vulnerable, the most at risk, the most not good enough, the most sensitive to rejection? You're the person because they love you and you love them. Therefore, you're not safe. Because at any given moment, you can tell your adopted child, doesn't matter how old they are, that you don't love them anymore. Because at the foundation of who they are, and how they came into the world, the experiences that they had, they don't trust that they're okay. So you, because you've invested the time, you've invested the energy, you've sacrificed and you've struggled, makes your child feel more at risk than anyone else in the world. So at the end of the day, when they've used their window of tolerance and you come home, guess what? Now they are very vulnerable. But here's where the challenge lies. Because you're going to use your window of tolerance all day long, listen to me, jibber jabber, challenging you, making you cry, making you mad, making you laugh, the whole gamut of emotions. I'm going to give it to you. And I love them all. I love all your emotional experience. I love your anger. There's nothing more fruitful in here than for someone to be angry. It'll be the greatest learning lesson for everyone in the room. Because someone in here struggles with an angry child. There's nothing that would be greater in here than for someone to start crying. It'll be the greatest opportunity for everyone in here because someone in here has a child who cries a lot. And when your child gets angry, when your child cries, when your child shuts down, it triggers you. It triggers you and it makes you feel helpless and you don't know what to do. Well, I'm going to show you what to do. And it's not that difficult, but it's hard. It's so simple what you do, but it's so hard to do it. So when you get home and your child is stressed out, I'm going to ask you to do one little thing, and here it is. This is your little homework assignment. You're going to take this home. I'm going to give you two things. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. And this is like bonus page number 4. So you can write this one down first, but this is bonus. This doesn't count as 3. Here's what I want you to do when you get home. Because we know your child has been stressed out all day, because we know their window of tolerance is small, almost completely collapsed, when you get home, all I want you to do is sit on the couch. Already struggling, mom goes, geez. Really? Wait a minute, I'm just getting started. Sit on the couch and don't turn on the TV. And put your cell phone down. Sit there. Now, the goal is to sit there for 20 minutes. That might be really hard for some of you because you're driving home thinking about you got to cook dinner, you got to do laundry, you got to get clothes ready for the next day, all the stuff that piled up at work while you were gone today. You got to get a couple bills paid. You still got to call your mama or your daddy. And so you're thinking about all these things that you got to do. And as you're thinking about all these things that you got to do, all you want to do is hit the ground running when you get home. Well, as soon as you hit the ground running when you get home, your child has no window of tolerance, is looking to connect with you because you are their secure base. So when you hit the ground running at home and you don't give them a target to hit, they feel rejected. Without saying a word, they feel rejected. You're not trying to reject your child. You're not trying to reject them. You're trying to be a good parent. You're trying to go do the chores that need to get done and put the food on the table and wash the clothes and do all the important things. Those are all good parent things. But when your child hadn't been with you all day long, they are stressed out. When they've been away from you all day long, they are stressed out and they are looking for their secure base because you, as their secure base, helps them to regulate and expand their window of tolerance. So when you go home and you sit on that couch, you just sit there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. They're going to come check in. They might climb on top of your head. They may come check in and say, why is dinner not cooked? All you do is you breathe. And you say, I love you. I'm glad to be home. It's good to see you. I missed you today. And you keep sitting there. And they'll go out, and then they'll come back. They'll go out, and they'll come back. Some of your children may just sit right there beside you and just jibber, jabber, jibber, jabber, jibber, jabber for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And what's going to happen in that process is that as you're breathing and you're regulated and also you're not being caught off guard, because when you get caught off guard, your amygdala takes over. So instead of getting caught off guard, just expect it. Just expect it. So you go home for that 20 minutes, you sit, that's probably going to change your whole evening. You'll probably have a peaceful evening just by doing that. And it doesn't even have to be 20. If you could just do 10. Just realize that your child has to have that secure base to extend their window of tolerance to get through the rest of the evening. They've got to have that to get through the rest of the evening. They've got to have that regulated time with you in order to get through the rest of the evening successfully. Everyone want to have a successful evening? Show of hands. Anyone doesn't want to have a successful evening?